In the year 2237, the world was at war. Humanity had long been preparing for the inevitable clash with the stars, but they never anticipated the overwhelming force of the Galactic Empire. Armed with superior technology, advanced weaponry, and fleets that spanned the galaxy, the Empire swiftly crushed Earth's defenses. For decades, Earth's greatest military minds and bravest soldiers had fought valiantly, using every strategy and innovation they could muster. But despite their courage, the Empire's forces proved unstoppable. Earth's armies, once proud and feared across the stars, were systematically destroyed. Key battlefields on Mars, the Moon, and orbital stations fell under the Empire's might, leaving humanity with little hope. As the years passed, resistance groups formed in the shadows, but they were little more than scattered remnants. The once bustling cities became hollowed-out ruins, and Earth's survivors were left in constant fear of the Empire's iron grip. For every victory the humans claimed, the Empire struck back harder, sending wave after wave of superior forces. And then, Earth's greatest warriors, the last standing defenders of the planet, fell. The final blow came when the Empire unleashed their ultimate weapon, the Expanse-class dreadnought, a massive vessel capable of obliterating entire cities in seconds. The last bastion of Earth's resistance, a fortified stronghold in the mountains of China, was vaporized in an instant. Humanity's last great hope was lost. In the aftermath of the war, the Empire assumed complete control. The human race was subdued, their once proud civilizations reduced to mere footnotes in the Empire's history. The cities of Earth became gleaming hubs of alien activity, and the population, broken and fearful, lived under the constant shadow of their conquerors. Yet, despite all this, the human spirit was not entirely extinguished. Whispers began to circulate among the remaining survivors, tales of ancient powers, of beings who had once walked Earth, and whose names were feared by even the most powerful of conquerors. These legends spoke of a time when Earth was ruled not by technology, but by primal, untamable forces, beings that had slumbered for centuries. And so, in the midst of humanity's darkest days, the seeds of hope were quietly sown. Unknown to the Empire, a storm was brewing. The Galactic Empire had made a fatal mistake. They underestimated the power of Earth's legends. Amid the devastation, as the last embers of Earth's military resistance flickered out, something ancient stirred beneath the rubble. In the forgotten corners of the planet, deep in forests, caves, and lost villages, there were still those who remembered the old stories, stories that spoke of powers far beyond the reach of any weapon or fleet. In the heart of the Russian wilderness, deep within a sacred grove of twisted, ancient trees, Baba Yaga, the legendary witch of Slavic folklore, began to stir. Her name had been whispered in hushed tones for centuries, a figure feared and revered in equal measure. To the Galactic Empire, she was nothing but a myth, a relic of a bygone era. But Baba Yaga was no mere fairy tale. For centuries, she had remained in hiding, dormant, waiting for the time when the world would once again need her. She had watched from the shadows as civilizations rose and fell, indifferent to the passing of time. But the Empire's tyranny had awakened something primal in her, a call to arms, to protect the world that once feared her and respected her ancient power. Her home, a hut perched on chicken legs, slowly began to reappear amidst the dense fog of the Russian forests, shimmering with an eerie glow. Baba Yaga's magic was untamed, older than any empire, older than the stars themselves. With each movement, the earth itself trembled beneath her feet as she summoned the elements, wind, fire, and ice, reclaiming the power she had once wielded to shape the fate of kingdoms. But Baba Yaga was not alone. From the shadows of another world, from the dark recesses of human fear, there emerged another force. One as ancient as the witch herself, the American Boogeyman. A creature born of nightmare, haunting the darkest corners of childhood stories. His name had been passed down in whispers, forgotten by many, but still feared by those who remembered. He was not a single being, but a manifestation of pure terror. The boogeyman had no true form, no face, no shape, only an overwhelming presence that thrived in the minds of those who feared him. His very name was enough to send shivers down the spine of anyone who believed in the old tales. But the Galactic Empire had never heard of him, nor had they ever encountered a force like him. As the boogeyman emerged, his presence spread like a plague, infecting the minds of the Empire soldiers. He was an embodiment of terror, drawing power from the darkest fears of every soldier who encountered him. He fed on fear, causing his victims to hallucinate their worst nightmares, paralyzing them with visions of their deepest, most primal fears. The boogeyman was chaos incarnate, and his mere existence threatened the stability of the Empire's vast war machine. Together, Baba Yaga and the boogeyman formed an unholy alliance, two forces of nature, each with their own terrifying power, brought together by the sheer need to avenge Earth and free it from the tyrannical grip of the Galactic Empire. They were not just protectors of Earth, but the living embodiment of humanity's forgotten myths and legends. Their awakening marked the beginning of the Empire's downfall. The whispers of the people, once dismissed as mere superstition, had now taken form. The ancient powers had returned to the world of man, and the Galactic Empire would soon learn that there were forces they could never conquer, forces that did not bend to the will of technology or might. The legends of Earth had come to life, and they were ready to fight. The Galactic Empire had long believed that their technological supremacy made them invincible. Their starships could obliterate entire planets, their armies could annihilate any resistance, and their control over the galaxy was as unchallenged as the rising sun. Yet, nothing in their vast arsenal could prepare them for the forces that now walked upon Earth once again. Baba Yaga's return was heralded by violent storms and earthquakes that ravaged the land. With a flick of her wrist, she twisted the very fabric of nature to her will. Forests erupted into flames, rivers froze over in seconds, and the air itself crackled with raw power. Her magic was old, too old for the Empire to understand, and it made their weapons useless. But the boogeyman was even more terrifying. Unlike the Empire's advanced technologies, which were based on logic and precision, the boogeyman thrived on chaos and fear. His presence alone was enough to shake the foundations of any military force. As he moved across Earth's battlefields, he conjured nightmares that turned the bravest soldiers into quivering wrecks. The soldiers of the Empire, once fearless and deadly, now screamed in terror at their own shadows, hallucinating horrors of their deepest fears. One by one, the Empire's forces fell apart. The highly trained soldiers who had once crushed entire civilizations were now helpless in the face of pure terror. The boogeyman twisted their minds, forcing them to turn on each other. Crew members of the Empire's mighty warships abandoned their posts, overcome with fear that could not be reasoned with or shot away. The Empire's greatest general, a tactical genius, found himself ensnared by an all-consuming fear of failure, a fear that left him paralyzed, unable to command his fleet. Meanwhile, Baba Yaga launched her own campaign. She commanded the elements with a casual flick of her fingers, creating destructive tornadoes that tore through Empire fortifications, turning entire cities to ash. When she wasn't casting storms of ice and fire, she was appearing in the dreams of Empire leaders, planting seeds of doubt and despair that tore their strategies apart. No warship or drone could match her power. No weapon could harm her, for she was the embodiment of the Earth itself, older than any empire in existence. The people of Earth, long cowed into submission, found themselves awakening with new hope. Small pockets of resistance, once hiding in fear, now rallied behind the ancient protectors. Baba Yaga and the boogeyman did not just fight, they became symbols. They were more than legendary beings. They were the manifestation of humanity's deepest strength. And as the ancient powers reclaimed the Earth, more and more of the human population rose from the ashes, ready to fight once again. The Galactic Empire, never having encountered anything like this, underestimated the sheer power of myth. They thought it was the firepower of their fleet that mattered most, not realizing that it was the human spirit, embodied in these ancient legends, that would ignite the rebellion. The Boogeyman's influence spread like wildfire, causing each conquest to unravel. While the Empire's ships dominated the skies, their soldiers crumbled in the face of psychological warfare, so powerful it could not be fought with laser beams or shields on the ground. Baba Yaga's magic was a force of nature. The Empire's advanced drones, which once swept across the battlefield with surgical precision, were now blind and useless. She summoned storms that struck from nowhere, winds that whipped up the very earth into walls of sand and dust, and fires that consumed everything in their path. The Empire's cities were scorched, their outposts buried beneath shifting sands and towering infernos. As the battle raged on, the Empire's grasp on Earth tightened for a brief moment, but cracks were appearing everywhere. The constant onslaught of terror and magic wore down the Empire's forces. They had underestimated Earth's defenders, these beings born not of technology, but of myth, and now the Empire's technological might was being shattered by ancient power. The Empire's fleet, once considered invincible, began to fall back and retreat. Humanity's long-buried legends had come to life, and they were winning. The tide had turned. What was once a lost, broken world was now reborn, with the force of nature itself fighting alongside the people of Earth. The war that had seemed hopeless now became one of humanity's greatest triumphs. It was no longer just a battle for survival. It was a battle for the very soul of the Earth. And the ancient protectors of the planet were not going to let it fall again. As the final battles raged, the Empire faced an unprecedented question. How could they defeat forces that defied logic, that were immune to their weapons, and that existed beyond the realm of their understanding? The answer, they would soon realize, was that they couldn't. The Galactic Empire had met its match, and it had not come from the far reaches of space, but from the very core of Earth's deepest, oldest legends. With each passing day, the Galactic Empire's hold on Earth began to slip further. As Baba Yaga's storms raged across the planet, and the Boogeyman haunted the darkest corners of the Empire's psyche, the Empire's leadership grew desperate. They had underestimated humanity's legends, and now they were facing a rebellion unlike anything they had encountered. No amount of firepower, no strategic genius, could overcome the ancient forces that had awoken in a final, desperate bid to crush the resistance. The Empire deployed their greatest weapon, Grand General Draxius, the Empire's most formidable leader. Known throughout the galaxy for his unparalleled skill in battle, Draxius was a master strategist, capable of annihilating entire civilizations. He was sent to Earth with a single directive: destroy the Witch and the Boogeyman, and end the human uprising once and for all. Draxius arrived in Earth's atmosphere aboard the Titan Reaper, a dreadnought so massive it could obliterate a city with a single blast. It was armed with the Empire's most advanced weapons: plasma cannons, ion beams, and gravitational suppressors. The Empire believed that with Draxius at the helm, victory was assured. But they had forgotten one crucial detail. They were no longer fighting mere soldiers. They were fighting Earth's ancient protectors. Upon landing on Earth, Draxius and his fleet encountered the full force of Baba Yaga's wrath. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the witch summoned massive earthquakes that shattered the Empire's landing platforms. The very air grew heavy with magic, and the skies darkened, as if Earth itself was rejecting the invaders. Draxius, the most powerful general in the Empire, found himself facing an enemy that could not be defeated by technology or weapons. He commanded his forces to fire, and the Titan Reaper unleashed a devastating barrage of energy blasts. But Baba Yaga was not afraid. With a flick of her hand, she deflected the blasts, sending them ricocheting back at the Empire's ships. Draxius's fleet, unable to withstand the sheer power of her magic, was torn apart in moments. The Titan Reaper itself was immobilized by a massive storm of ice and fire, its engines freezing and burning at once. Meanwhile, The boogeyman moved through the battlefield, his presence enough to drive even the strongest Empire soldiers to madness. Draxius's most loyal troops, the elite Imperial Guards, fell one by one, their minds twisted by the boogeyman's influence. They saw their worst fears manifest in terrifying visions. Visions so horrifying that they turned on their own comrades, tearing apart the very fabric of their unit cohesion. Draxius's soldiers, once the most disciplined force in the galaxy, now fought amongst themselves, paralyzed by terror. As the chaos unfolded, Draxius finally faced the witch herself. Baba Yaga appeared before him, her eyes glowing with ancient power. She was no longer just a myth or a legend. She was the embodiment of Earth's primal fury. Draxius, undeterred, charged forward, wielding his plasma sword. But Baba Yaga, with a simple gesture, turned his weapon to dust, the heat of the plasma vanishing into the air. "You cannot win, General." Baba Yaga spoke with a voice that seemed to echo through the very soil. "Your empire is built on fear, but fear is a power that belongs to us." Draxius, for the first time in his life, felt a flicker of doubt. He had never faced an enemy like this. His tactical genius, his superior technology, all his training, nothing had prepared him for this. His armies were broken, his fleet in ruin, and he himself was standing before a force he could neither comprehend nor defeat. In a final act of defiance, Draxius attempted to activate the Titan Reaper as a self-destruct sequence, hoping to take Earth and the ancient powers with him. But the boogeyman was already there, whispering in his ear, feeding on his fear. Draxius's resolve shattered. The very idea of death, of failure, consumed him, and with a scream of terror, he fell to his knees. The general of the Empire had become a broken man, no longer the unshakable leader he once was. Baba Yaga, sensing the shift, stepped forward, her gaze filled with quiet judgment. "You were nothing but a puppet of a dying empire," she said softly. With a wave of her hand, the Titan Reaper and its remaining fleet were obliterated, the ship disintegrating in a storm of fire and ice. The Empire's forces, already crumbling under the assault of Baba Yaga's magic and the boogeyman's terror, were now without leadership. Earth's final victory was assured. The Galactic Empire, once thought invincible, had been undone not by brute force, but by the very fear they had sought to control. With the fall of Draxius and the destruction of the Empire's last bastion on Earth, the human race emerged from the ashes. The once subjugated world, devastated and broken, had reclaimed its freedom. The people, now united under the banner of their ancient protectors, began to rebuild their world, knowing that they had been saved by the very forces they had once feared. Baba Yaga and the boogeyman, having avenged the fallen and secured Earth's future, vanished as mysteriously as they had appeared, their task complete. But their legacy lived on, etched into the minds and hearts of every human who had witnessed their power. The Galactic Empire had learned a bitter lesson, that no matter how advanced their technology, they could never defeat the timeless spirit of Earth. The Empire's reckoning had come, and humanity, with the aid of its ancient legends, had emerged victorious.